This is Nicky G and welcome to Better Commander, the show where we approach deck building with the same attention and acumen as the shipwright who designed the Titanic, who wants to take a break from these all-will-be-one spoilers. Now let's read this guy. Zevlor, El Turel, Exile. 1 blue, black, and a red for a legendary creature, Tiefling Warrior. It's a 4/2 with haste. Has 2 in tap. When you next cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single opponent or a single permanent an opponent controls this turn, for each opponent, choose that player or a permanent they control, copy that spell, and the copy targets the chosen player or permanent. This guy, he's got horns, he's got 2 swords, he's got tentacles coming out of his neck or something. He's got a very powerful effect as well. My buddy was building this guy and he rips. My friend is a newer commander player, kind of hopped on adventures in Forgotten Realms. So as the old man of the group, it fell to me to deck doctor this guy. My friend had a strong mill theme going on, so I suggested a few mill payoffs and cards to utilize graveyards. But a lot of power in the deck came from bribery. Now bribery is 3 blue for a sorcery. Search target opponent's library for a creature card, put that card onto the battlefield under your control, then that player shuffles. Copying this card with Zevlor can be a real blowout. You get the 3 best creatures from each of your opponents, which can be pretty backbreaking. All this for 7 total mana. Bribery was $30 forever, but then got a very dubious looking secret lair printing. That card's like $10 currently actually on the rise to about $11. That experience got me thinking, what are some other fantastic spells to copy with Zevlor? What other spells let us look into our opponent's libraries in Grixis? It was an interesting journey and I thought I'd share it with you. And we're going to dive right in, don't worry. But first, if you enjoy this video and others like it on my channel, like and subscribe. That's all I ask, really. I mean, don't stab a painting of yourself, for gosh sakes. I mean, everybody and their mothers are all doing all-will-be-one spoilers. Is that what you want out of life? You want to look at spoilers all day? You want to take a break with old Nicky G and chat about cards? So the challenge is we want to copy spells that target one opponent or a permanent they control, and we want to target their libraries, brother, because they're putting good cards in their libraries, they're putting good cards in their hands, and they're putting good cards in the battlefields, and I want them. Some of these cards you may have heard of, some may be surprises, so let's dive in. You got Head Games, 3 black for a sorcery. Target opponent puts the cards from their hand on top of their library. Search that player's library for that many cards. The player puts those cards into their hand, then shuffles. I mean, you can give somebody only lands, right? That's the play. Totally screw up their life. Or, if needed, you can give Jimmy Fimblepants over there board wipe or whatever they need to deal with the arch enemy at the table. Just know, this card will salt up the entire table. Oh man, I love the art on this thing. It's a picture of Anton LaVey just going completely hog wild at the Build-A-Bear store in the mall. Bet you weren't expecting an Anton LaVey reference. How about Acquire over here? 3 blue for a sorcery. Search target opponent's library for an artifact card and put that card onto the battlefield under your control, then that player shuffles. So what's the floor on this card? If you copy it with Zevlor, you get the best mana rock in everybody's deck, right? Everybody runs Soul Ring, but the ceiling is so much higher on this thing. This card only has 2 printings, and one is an IDW promo. Such a cool card in a Zevlor deck. And you got Praetor's Grasp, 1 black for a sorcery. Search target opponent's library for a card and exile it face down. Then that player shuffles. You may look at and play that card for as long as it remains exiled. I have 3 copies of this card. It's a very strong card. It's another one that's only been reprinted twice and once in a secret lair. Again, with dubious art. This card is fantastic. If you're outside green, you can use this as a ramp spell. Basically, just get all the soul rings. In Zevlor, this comes out mana positive if you copy it for 3 players, and Children's on there just trying to give you a hug. Alright, then you got Knowledge Exploitation, 5 blue for a tribal sorcery rogue. It has a prowl cost, 3 and a blue. Search target opponent's library for an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then that player shuffles. This can be a real knockout if you copy it for each opponent. For some reason, everyone is running Jeska's Will, right? Probably because it's a good card. Just get 3 Jeska's Wills and go to town. Just kidding, that probably won't happen, but everyone is running impactful spells. You need 9 mana to copy this for each opponent in Zevlor, so that's kind of a tall order, unless you have a rogue up your sleeve somewhere. Hey, let's dive into our opponent's hands for some budget gems. We got Treacherous Urge, 4 and a black for an instant. Target opponent reveals their hand. You may put a creature card from it onto the battlefield under your control. That creature gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. I don't see this card played very often, but what if it said each opponent costs 7 mana, right? You put it in Zevlor, that's what it says. Then it's pretty crazy. Get that big fatty and swing it, plus you can get all the ETBs. Oh man, then you got Covetous Urge. It's 4 hybrid Dimir mana for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from that player's graveyard or hand and exile it. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. I hardly ever see this played as well, but it's kind of great if you get 3 copies for 6 mana. This is a very versatile card. Very small restriction. You can't get land, so don't even think about it, brother. Listen, you're still guilty of larceny if you steal with your ghost hands. Then you got Psychic Intrusion, 3 blue and a black for a sorcery. Basically says the same thing as Covetous Urge says. Very similar card, but it costs 1 more for a less colored pips. I don't know what the heck this guy's doing in the art. Use your imagination, alright? Now you might want to steal your opponent's stuff right off the battlefield, dude. You got Hurl Through Hell, 2 black and a red for an instant. Exile target creature. Until the end of your next turn, you may cast that card, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. Gorgeous art on this card. Look at this thing. Copy this 2 times and swing some creatures over to your side, buddy. It's card advantage. I can't believe I'd never seen this before. This is a case of too many cards to sort through, man. I know there are more efficient spells out there, but this is a perfect flavor for Zevlor. Now there are 1,000,001 effects that steal things off your opponent's side of the battlefield, put it on your side of the battlefield, untap, they gain haste, then you can attack, then you give them back. I mean, those cards are a dime a dozen and they're all pretty awesome. There's a bunch of them. But I want to highlight Slave of Bolas. 3 hybrid red and a blue and a black for a sorcery. Gain control of target creature. Untap that creature, gains haste until end of turn, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. This card is so infuriating, especially if Zevlor copies it. Bolas is taking a page out there from Andrew Tate, dude. Rip from the headlines, folks. I'm here all week. Well, listen, there are some sweet cards to frustrate your opponents and trade off their deck's power, but there's a couple bonus cards you can include in Zevlor, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them. Are you tired of all these commanders your opponents have running amok out there? Well, even if their commander isn't out, you can target them and draw 3 cards with this if you copy it with Zevlor. You got Leadership Vacuum, 2 and a blue for an instant. Target player returns each commander they control from the battlefield to the command zone and draw a card. I love this thing, and there's a bunch of cards that do this. Just bounce creatures and you get to draw a card. If you copy them with Zevlor, you're paying 5 mana basically and then drawing 3 cards, bouncing 3 things. Since my buddy was running a very strong mill theme in his Zevlor deck, I prompted him to include Pilfered Plans. It's 1 blue and a black for a sorcery. Target player mills 2 cards, draw 2 cards. Even if you aren't in a strong mill theme, this draws 6 cards for 5 mana with Zevlor out there. Look at this guy in the art. He's watching 90 Day Fiancé as part of a CIA mind control experiment. Oh, look at old Bruvac here. He's going through his records of how much he spent on Magic the Gathering cards this year. So listen, man, Zevlor, he's an interesting commander. I had fun messing around with it. I remember when this guy first came out, people were just losing their minds, dude. They're like, oh, you can copy spells, and oh my god. But now everyone is like, well, who cares? You know, we're on Elish Norn already. But sometimes it's fun to look back and really see where a commander landed and see what makes him special. My buddy building this deck was a fun little journey for me. I actually put a little deck together. I'm going to put it in the comments. It's fairly budget. It's around $100. You don't got to go too crazy with the land base or anything. So check it out. Everybody, be nice to each other, you know. Don't be mean in the comments. Don't be mean in anybody's comments. Snicky G from Better Commander, signing off.